Hi, everybody. Here I am in my backyard, and spring has officially arrived, and this is about what spring is in Colorado. A day that's 60 degrees, and yet there's still plenty of leftover snow, and got a tree from the snowstorm that blew over that will probably become firewood at some point in time. But such is spring in Colorado. One day it can be 75 degrees, the next day it can be snowing, or both on the same day as I've seen before, May 20th, 2001 to be exact. And by pure coincidence, while spring very up and down in this state, I've had some of the biggest ups and downs of my life in the spring. Like in 8th grade, when on a 75-degree day in March, I found out that one of the prettiest girls in school was moving to Oregon. And a couple of days later, I saw her for the very last time. And I remember some years later when, a little before spring, the relationship blew up in my face, and I dealt with the aftermath of that throughout the spring, as well as dealing with people telling me to still be friends, telling me I wasn't good enough, and overall talking about how great they were. And dealt with more of the same the following spring, and add to it someone who thought he knew everything and thought he owned me. Very bossy. If I didn't give him his way, he'd keep annoying me for it. Just one of those tough times where my respect for people faded after that, to tell you the truth. I've had work I've liked doing, work I haven't liked doing during the spring, in various jobs. A complete high was one time when I was a teenager, when my announcing career began and took off almost immediately. I announced baseball a little differently over the PA than most, and was fortunate that most liked what they heard, and that's become a career for me. I think about spring of 2015, when I know, thanks to some bad weather and some other extenuating circumstances, I got to announce 2 baseball district tournaments, one at Wheat Ridge, one at Denver East. Wheat Ridge thanks to a friend of mine, Coach Adam Miller, and Denver East thanks to another friend of mine, Coach Chris Mann, who's now leading the way at Northglenn. And then going back to ups and downs, May 15th, 2017, I dealt with one of the biggest highs and one of the biggest lows I've ever had. On that day, my Uncle Wes was rushed to the hospital. His cancer had taken over his body. And I wrestled with the idea of going to the Dakota Ridge baseball banquet that night. But after talking it over with Aunt Jen, she said, "Your Uncle Wes would want you to do what you love doing." So I went to the Dakota Ridge baseball banquet, and that was the night, May 15th, 2017, I found out they were naming the press box at Dakota Ridge after me. Talk about feeling really bad and really good in one night. That was it. And unfortunately, it would become really bad 8 days later, as my Uncle Wes, despite a valiant effort, officially lost his fight with cancer at the age of 67. Just a couple more for you. Pandemic of 2020 speaks for itself. About a week before it officially became spring, it was announced high school sports would be canceled till April, and eventually canceled for the season, but they still announced the season opener, what proved to be the only game of girls lacrosse, between Regis Jesuit and Dakota Ridge. Game won by Regis 18-4, by the way, but that's just a footnote. As the rest of that week, into the spring and into the summer, like most people, I stayed at home, other than getting restaurant food to go sometimes, or the occasional trip to the grocery store or the pharmacy. And then a high of highs, 2022 Boys Volleyball High School State Championship. as well as the RMAC Women's Lacrosse Tournament the same weekend. And then a couple weeks later, Golden High School hosted a district tournament. That was my first announcing assignment with them. And then just last year, more highs of highs and lows of lows. On the high side, got to do Golden Baseball's district tournament again, as I got to do most of Golden's baseball games as I do now. Got to do the RMAC Women's Lacrosse Tournament again. The Boys Volleyball State Tournament again. In fact, I did the Boys Volleyball State Tournament for high school and a regional for Division II Women's Lacrosse that the school that employs me, Regis University, was hosting. And yet, also during last spring, like I've mentioned before, a Dakota Ridge baseball player, another place I do baseball, Dakota Ridge, obviously, and player Brady Hose passed away unexpectedly at the age of 17. Another thing I've chronicled, my elementary school, Color Oak, closed for good. Also caught quite the cold at the end of May last year. Just another example of highs, lows of lows, and I've certainly had them in the spring where the weather in Colorado can be its highest of highs and its lowest of lows. Spring has always been an enigmatic period, both weather-wise and in my life as well. So those are my thoughts for the day. Thank you for tuning in and listening. Talk to you soon. Good day, everyone.